hope that you were just good to be here. Worship a little bit about looking forward to this service tonight.
Wandering into the night, this bag of meat, I just and I didn't know he could be the master. I think we are not the same. Got no choice but to believe. Yes, you got now till I walk the street has found his way back. He prays for me, healed my heart. He changed the Savior. I lost another one. I lost another one. I am free. I am free. I am free. We thank the Master. I thank the free. I'm not the same.
Amen. Amen. We are going to have our in prayer tonight. He is a surgery, and we know that God is going. If we could, she is asking prayer for us here, and it's Tuesday to scrape the blood night. I have received one more. The Lord knows the exact need for your hand. God knows the details. God knows in the house. So why don't we just take these, Lord, that we can come, Lord, into the presence, but you are a God need, Lord, that the surgeons guide them. Taking place, this diagnosis, Lord, you know everything that's taken this procedure next Tuesday, Lord, the recovery from this, Lord, the need that is that are watching online, God, they have them right where they're at, God, that you're going to meet us here tonight in this place, and amen. Why don't you find somebody, give them a high five, and then you can. Well, as I said, able to be here tonight. We started about, and more about what in Guinea, West Africa. Page on Facebook, so if you're on there, maybe you a perfect time for us to be able to share receiving our move around this time, and primary partners in that they are able to purchase. They are driving a global missionaries all over it. Give a great offer. Much for giving all the missionary to Gabon. Pledges that had come in over these last few weeks. One of the that generated, and so we had some just amazing services and ministering and being here more. So thankful for them. Ministers right here at New Life. Going to have a continuation Wednesdays, and just what I feel like I could go at least or one more taste of that at least. As he comes here, just give him thankful for him. It is cool. Our kids' revival, and we'll receive an offering as we turn it over to
whether he told them to or not. So that then we just ask, Lord, that you bless this offering. We're going to wrap up our series on being a difference maker about principles. You can check self-discovery. The example that we mentioned directly. Instead, he told Moses, we want to figure out who we are. We need to figure out who defines your potential. And we talked about it to create fish, and that they were created with. God made man. It was his breath that gave us life. Your purpose defines your priorities. Time to heal. There were needs that the cross was his purpose of getting. You forfeit the blessing. Felt conviction. God be tough, but the blessing at the end is worth it. You can catch up later, but we're going to do a wrap up tonight. When you're teaching, you're not down. We'll end it. We'll cover the small things leads to bigger things. And most of us struggle to understand. We want to be remembered. Each piece that are involved in chess, and they can move different. It holds the littlest value, and often, and the dictionary defines the pawn. They may be sacrificed so that a different piece. No one says, when I grow up, I want to be a pawn. Pawns are essential. When God asks us to share greatness, and before I got up, they're not going to worship, they're not going to respond. Just sit back and be obedient. Ensure that the message that I preach, is it about you or is it about me? Are we willing to do something and you're not going to get any recognition whatsoever? Somebody else receiving the glory, no matter how big, no matter how small. I'd rather be served than serve others. Go after people that are charismatic. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Those same words in Philippians, more significant than trying to control. We want to do great things, not to focus on being great. He was saying, and they agreed, yeah, Jesus is the one in charge. Jesus to follow and judge that somebody else was going to be elevated higher. Had a similar issue with the church in Corinth. Good thing we don't do it in the Bible. Never say, I'm of Paul, or I am of a church because I have my own special. That hero worship mindset is. And if we're not, the closer relate, that's all that matters. Servant's heart I have. Whatever God needs me to be, I just way. We have Jim Collins. And leaders, their goal is never, I want everyone to notice me. No, instead, they focus on the important things. I love it. Just has to be effective. So what's meaning and purpose for his life isn't right. And Israel out of bondage, he was someone who every doubting question he gave God, that I'm going to be with you. Sometimes you can talk till you're blue in the face. But what is that in your hand? And Moses ran from it. Because Moses replied, it's just a staff. And God was showing Moses, make the small thing be something amazing. God spoke purpose in heart. Hands as he held them up and saw Israel. Hands as he held them up and saw Israel have. But here's something else. It was a special time, but he was always using me. We hide him away and say when it's a special time, to be obedient and use what God is away and say when it's a special time, to be obedient and use what God has given us. It isn't found in our pursuit to do given us. It isn't found in our pursuit to do great things. It's insignificant. Great things. It's insignificant. It doesn't trust us with the small things. And it doesn't trust us with the small things. Do something big if I can't trust you with something small. For the big, do something big if I can't trust you with something small. For the big picture, the final product of God's purpose in your order to picture the final product of God's purpose in your order to fulfill God's purpose. Start asking yourself. He talks about to fulfill God's purpose. Start asking yourself. He talks about difficulties and right. So much I need to let the world know difficulties and right. So much I need to let the world know about. To write, and it's not because they don't know about. To write, and it's not because they don't have anything to say. He talks about how writing don't have anything to say. He talks about how writing a book is you need to form an outline. You need to develop you need to form an outline. You need to develop what does that matter? Word finish it all. What does that matter? Word finish it all. It's like he's onto something, right? It's like he's onto something, right? The big thing is the book. It's not just about the big thing is the book. It's not just about the big picture. Things to remember that dreams don't picture. Things to remember that dreams don't become realities. Not to put them into action. Don't become realities. Not to put them into action. Small. And then he said to me, "This is the word of the post." Small. And then he said to me, "This is the word of the post." Something he had to do. Something was something he had to do, and it wasn't going to be by us to get involved in God. And it wasn't going to be by us to get involved in God has to do something big. So sitting on the sidelines, what has to do something big? So sitting on the sidelines, waiting for him to finish. The plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel, waiting for him to finish. The plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel. He used a plumb line to make sure that the cornerstone in there. I can't line to make sure that the cornerstone in there. I can't do what only I can. God can't do what only I can. God was handling the big things that are bigger than they are capable of. Handling the big things that are bigger than they are capable of. Instant in the small things. Give instant in the small things. Give it to God. Let him handle that. Give it to God. Let him handle that. This part, he's going to handle the big stuff for you. Or he's going to handle the big stuff for you. He would say, God called, I saw the church experience. He would say, God called, I saw the church experience tremendous growth. It almost didn't happen. Tremendous growth. It almost didn't happen. Because as back, it took months of therapy to encourage. Because as back, it took months of therapy to encourage him. He told this mission, I was urge him. He told this mission, I was obviously proving like it now, but God obviously proving like it now, but God was just keeping speak to me one time. God was just keeping speak to me one time. That word, missionary Elton Bernard. That word, missionary Elton Bernard. No matter what happened. No matter what happens to me, God told me to God, we don't get to see the end from the me. God told me to God, we don't get to see the end from the beginning. Anyone ever, or maybe that's just the beginning. Anyone ever, or maybe that's just me, where you ask questions like, what's me, where you ask questions like, what, when the struggle gets to be too much, when making sure, when the struggle gets to be too much, when making sure that it's important. The message, right, I wouldn't have to go through that it's important. The message, right, I wouldn't have to go through all of this stuff. That God is still having, through all of this stuff. That God is still having, he still has we can face impossible odds when it's back. We can face impossible odds when it's back. His difficulties to deter him from his purpose. That was difficulties to deter him from his purpose. That was set before. The cross wasn't the only difficulty he encountered. Also, the cross wasn't the only difficulty he encountered. Also, people that were plotting against him everywhere. people that were plotting against him everywhere. Jesus wasn't the only one that went through the heart. 11, Paul tells us that Jesus wasn't the only one that went through the heart. 11, Paul tells us that he was beaten over this. He struggled in the sea. He's beaten over this. He struggled in the sea. He went without food, and he did it all. Verse 7. Went without food, and he did it all. Verse 7. I have fallen. Despite us telling me to give up, he held on to the word promise. Despite us telling me to give up, he held on to the word promise. You'll be a father to you'll be a father to a nation. God, you just gave me. God says, okay, to a nation. God, you just gave me. God says, okay, then kill it. Okay, then kill it. Abraham didn't understand it. He didn't give them the promise. Abraham didn't understand it. He didn't give them the promise giver. He's not able to do future giver. He's not able to do future, and you hold on to that word. And you hold on to that word. But God and God alone love with his promises. God and God alone love with his promises so much that you fall out of love. You aren't called to pursue a promise. So much that you fall out of love. You aren't called to pursue a promise. Ask yourself, am I pursuing the gift, or am I gave me the dream, the one who can fulfill it? Am I pursuing the gift, or am I gave me the dream, the one who can fulfill it? God told me that he said he was fulfill it. God told me that he said he was going to give me dream, or is it to the dream giver? We want to give me dream, or is it to the dream giver? We want to see this church grow. See this church grow. You spend hours to make your mortgage, but you spend hours to make your mortgage, but you wanted to, and the day before he gets, and the day before he gets finished, the day before to start a home missions church in your house. Finish the day before to start a home missions church in your house. That's the difference between having a promise he gave. That's the difference between having a promise he gave you. It's going to be true. It's going to be true. There's a unique difference. A revelation is a revelation is a manifest. This is the announcement. Was he was leaving? This is the announcement. Was he was leave his country. Leave his country. Years later, get them along this journey in Genesis 22. Years later, get them along this journey in Genesis 22. The lad and I will go yonder and we're. The lad and I will go yonder and we're. A revelation. I don't need to know how. I don't need to know. A revelation. I don't need to know how. I don't need to know. Maybe it was because he was a promise that. Maybe it was because he was a promise that God had given him, and he wanted to remove something that God had given him, and he wanted to remove any. Sometimes in transition, you got to separate yourself of what God. Sometimes in transition, you got to separate yourself of what God is asking you to do. If him came to this revelation, asking you to do. If him came to this revelation that obedient you require, has an ear, let him hear. Peace, ears, has an ear, let him hear. Peace, ears pierced with an owl. Heard the security that came with pierced with an owl. Heard the security that came with being faithful to the man. I'm not going anywhere. Being faithful to the man. I'm not going anywhere. To do whatever the master required on. To do whatever the master required on. All refer to themselves as a thing. All refer to themselves as a thing. Galatians 1, if I were still trying this world, Galatians 1, if I were still trying this world, it isn't a popularity. It isn't a popularity. Revelation comes the master that revelation comes the master that a revelation like that we'll call it in a fast about it. A revelation like that we'll call it in a fast about it for 3 days. But before I tell you what that is, we're for 3 days. But before I tell you what that is, we're gonna start a story about a former undersecretary. Story about a former undersecretary, and he took a sip of coffee. And he took a sip of coffee. And he looked up again. Last year I held the and he looked up again. Last year I held the title. Met me there and took me to the hotel. Title. Met me there and took me to the hotel room. The next morning when I came down, I was shown. The next morning when I came down, I was shown a green room, and I was this year I no longer hold shown a green room, and I was this year I no longer hold that same position. To the hotel, hold that same position. To the hotel. I checked my own self. I had to find my way backstage. I checked my own self. I had to find my way backstage, Sheen, and he just walked away to me. Sheen, and he just walked away to me. The ceramic cup for me. The ceramic cup for me. The speaker finally, they're not meant for you. The speaker finally, they're not meant for you. So here's the principle. So here's the principle. It's your position. Father, my own following your position. Father, my own following about God. Paul goes on about God. Paul goes on to share his good news with. He went to share his good news with. He went and found people that just needed about God. And found people that just needed about God. Man is a warrior in building. Man is a warrior in building your own reputation. Speech. He tried to keep things simple. What about him? Your own reputation. Speech. He tried to keep things simple. What about him? So important. So important. But it wasn't about out of leaders. What happens sometimes. But it wasn't about out of leaders. What happens sometimes is popular you are. Everyone could. Is popular you are. Everyone could. You have to be careful not to let your position. And pastor says, to be careful not to let your position. And pastor says, we're taking it to reach the lost. You don't need to pray for people effectively at the altar. You do, not the position you hold. It's never about not there to lord their authority over other people. I want to be the one in control. I want to be the one. And we try to be into a position. No longer hold the title. If you were no longer in charge of the event or position. Don't get me tomorrow, pastor got rid of every. It would still be on having the you create. One of them came to be. How presence of sand. When I wake, what's it all about? Wake. What's it all about? Me. Unit in me. I am fearful. I'm supposed to. Me. Unit in me. I am fearful. I'm supposed to. Run the aisles like Michael Bovee. I created you. He created Michael. Your eyes saw my unformed, and it's all about me. But at the same time, you're uniquely you. God made you that way. And don't let them define you. God is the one who defines. He says, for by the grace given to me in accordance with the faith that God is, as though we form one body, and each prophesying, then prophesy in the accordance, classify or compare ourselves with some of those there without understanding. Someone else's purpose. Stop comparing. It's unwise to compare yourself with others. Yourself and you say, am I who God has called to bless you? But he wants relationships, not positions or title. Position to lead people. And they're successful because they understand relationships. When you get to know people, the influence are often asked to serve. You treat people promoted and they're not the same person anymore. And we forgot the humble person to you that if you love one another, you have love for one another. You dress like a Christian isn't because you love when they allowed their hunger for leading to them and said, you know that the rulers of the down upon, they're all about you must be the servant to give life as a ransom for many. For a position of love through a relationship, alignment with God. He's saying if you're not having authority just to lead people. I've seen the respect of the position, but without humility. Leaders, there are some decisions that you're going to you won't become vindictive with. And finally, being therefore under the mighty hand of God. It's not when I've put it, when we think about that. Because your position, it doesn't define you. We'll close this out in prayer tonight. Be able to just apply some of this to our lives, God. Lord, my allegiance isn't to what you've called me to and just be